I am joined today, as ever, in this festive period, by my good friend, Laure Jackson. Hello, Anne.
Hello. I feel like saying Happy Christmas.
Well, it's that season, isn't it? It's a happy Christmas. Did you see this? Saw this in the news the other day. Canon J. John, God bless him. He wrote, I think it was the Telegraph or the Times, because Brighton University, I believe. Well, some people will be offended by the word Christmas or Christian. So we're not going to say Happy Christmas. It's seasonal shutdown time or something as stupid as that. And he wrote and said, in reference to this is the period of Christmas. This is about Jesus dying on a cross, which started at Christmas. I mean, you could see where he might have wanted to go. He said, look, if we're going to get rid of the word Christmas because it could offend someone, can we also get rid of the word Wednesday and also the word July? And he gave a quick history about why they're actually very, very unpleasant origins. The point being, let's not be silly. It's Christmas.
Amen. Amen.
Now, last week we were talking about all sorts of things. We've gone through an entire series on the senses, which I absolutely love doing. So we went through the 5 senses, the 2 extra ones you may not have heard of, the 8th group, which you probably certainly wouldn't have heard of. But if you listen back, you can actually go through the entire series on YouTube or podcast and listen again to all that information about the senses and sensory health, which is what Anne does. Just before we get in today, just remind people not why we have these conversations, because I asked you, but why am I talking to you specifically about sensory health? What is it you do as your day job?
Okay. So, yes, I am an occupational therapist with 30 years of experience in the field of sensory processing and integration, as well as other areas of OT. But that was when I keep forgetting the date, I think it was 1993, I was in Belgium and had my first experience of working with children with autism, and saw the power and the impact of sensory processing and integration for positive in these children's lives. So that started me off on a journey of doing more postgraduate qualifications, and now have just specialised and spend my life helping to equip and empower others to understand their sensory health. If they perhaps have no disability, no diagnosis, no nothing, we just all want to function well, or for those who are quite severely impacted by their sensory processing and integration, and it really does get in the way of life, and it affects their mental health, it affects their relationships at work, at home, if they're able to work at all, their schooling, what they're able to do, their handwriting, how anxious, or all this stuff. If someone isn't happy, if something isn't well, and we know that it's not an emotional reason or any other reason, then it's always worth checking out your sensory processing and integration, just to see if there are some roots there that we can actually change and help.
As we develop through life, things are going to change. Clearly, that's the whole thing of development. I'm holding a pen in my hand, which is not a very big pen. I'm holding it up to the camera for later. When I was at school, my writing was atrocious, really bad. I think there are a few reasons for that. I'll tell you some of them in a minute. But one of the teachers, I'm not sure that they would have said, okay, I'm seeing a sensory need, let me give you this solution. But what she said was a normal pencil or a pen, this is chunkier than a pencil. She said, sometimes you're going to struggle to hold it. So I'm going to give you a bigger pen, which was like an old red one. Was it Beryl or something? It was like a big chunky one. Try writing with that, because it'll be bigger for your hand, because you haven't quite got, the finesse yet. I mean, this is how I would have worded what she said. I remember this is primary school, so I'm going to be, I don't know, 7, 8 years old. And I remember she gave me this really chunky pen to try and help me to write. Now, I don't know how much of that pen actually helped me to write better or not. I'll tell you why I think my writing was bad at the moment. But it did make me feel good that somebody was trying to help me with something. Everybody else says, oh, that writing's rubbish, that's terrible, do that again. And what she said was, okay, let's see if we can help you do better. And what a difference it was from that's rubbish, that's terrible, do that again, to somebody else who said, how can I help you with this? What can we try? Here's a thicker pen. Let's try that, see if that helps. And the difference that made of someone wanting to invest in me and solving a problem that everybody else just said, yep, you're rubbish, that's terrible, do it again. That doesn't help the confidence levels of an 8-year-old with a writing thing.
No. And brilliant for that teacher. And that's a big part of what I'm trying to do now, is just go into as many schools as possible and help equip the teachers so they know not only what to say, because I mean, she obviously had the right heart around it all to really build you up as a small child, but then also give them the skills to be able to know where else she had her pen that she could go to. but there could have been another 10 or 20 different options that had she known about them that she also perhaps could have offered as well, to help you. But
I
mm,
think my issue with writing was nothing to do with writing. My issue was my brain works too quickly, and it's not always a help. So I remember writing an essay once, and it was early on secondary school, so I'm going to be 11, 12 years old, and it was write one page of a little essay. That's what we had to do, and I think I wrote a couple of pages. And anyway, it would appear that my brain was going faster than my hand could write. So I'm writing, and then I jump in my story that I'm telling on the very next word of the start of the next paragraph, and there's this big chunk of thought effectively missing. Now, that wasn't a handwriting issue. That's my brain is going much, much faster than my hands can possibly keep up with. So then the brain goes, right, let's just skip, keep going.
I know. And I think it's like when I talk, I do the same thing. I think my brain is like much faster than my mouth is. So I don't finish sentences, or I assume that you've got it even without me having actually spoken it. And it's just like, I have to slow down. It's just like, right, okay, mouth, just slow down and take people with you, which is a constant learning curve to develop into. Mm.
It's a learning curve for all of us, I think. But I was just glad that a teacher actually invested into me for a little moment. I don't think it made a big enough difference. I think I had other bigger issues around how my brain went faster than my hands could physically write.
Mm.
I still have the issue. I'm better now with a keyboard because I can write very quickly on a
Mm.
keyboard. I've got a special ergonomic one, so I can go even faster because literally I have to try and keep up with where my brain is at.
Mm.
And it does work pretty rapidly. Little insight into the Andy B world that everyone else has to suffer and suffer with around me. But I think there are often things like that which we either say you're terrible, you're rubbish, you're bad. And I remember being told that, do that again, do it again, do it again. That didn't help me do any better. In fact, it made me very, very upset, very angry, very bitter. And I remember this looking back as an 8-year-old nearly 40 years ago. It did not do anything from any of those teachers who've had sadly all failed me in that context because they just said, that's rubbish, that's terrible, do it again. Not, I wonder why you're struggling with that, which is exactly the bit that you come in to do.
Mm, hmm. Absolutely. And just help give so many more options that people have even thought of because sensory processing is so basic, we don't think about it most of the time. So, while I'm trying to bring people's attention to something that is so simple but profound, the things that we see, the things that we smell, what things feel like to us, and the impact that those things do to our concentration, to our focus, to how well we feel in ourselves or not. I mean, there was one boy that I was seeing this week. No sense of he just could not feel anything. His pain, he could tolerate an incredible amount of pain and would injure himself. He was always bumping into things. And they were trying to work on his scissor skills. So I just had to backtrack a little bit and say, well, you do recognize that his tactile processing isn't he's not registering his body in the same way that others are because you've just told me that he's always bumping into things. He's always he doesn't hurt himself. He doesn't feel pain in the same way. And I'm saying he doesn't really know where his body starts and where it stops. The skin is our boundary to society, to other people. It is our form of connection. And if you don't actually feel your skin, I mean, if people were to put their hands together now, you can actually feel your hands. You can feel how warm or how cold. And you have your body boundaries there. This fella just he could not feel his skin system. So to then try and put a pair of scissors in his hands and to ask him to coordinate that when he actually really can't feel much of what's going on anyway, that's a big ask. And they did say to me, well, at the moment he's holding his scissors, but he's kind of like pulling the paper apart. And I thought, yeah, because you can try and teach those skills, that's not a problem. It is a good thing to do, but maybe let's work on getting him to register the tactile sensation. Let's get him to feel his fingers, and then it'll be much easier for him to coordinate them once we've increased that registration in his touch system.
I guess the problem is if we get too focused on too much task driven, perhaps, then you need to learn to do this task. And in effect, it doesn't matter how much time, effort, investment, resources, money, people, if someone's struggling with a tactile system, it doesn't matter what you throw at them to try and help them. It's going to mean nothing. They're still not going to do it. They're going to feel like a failure because look, we've got all this help and I'm still failing. But actually, it's not an inability perhaps to do that particular task, like cutting a piece of paper with a pair of scissors. That's involving all sorts of, motor processing stuff. I mean, I've got a pair of scissors, which I use sometimes for really, really fine work because the blades are particularly sharp. I've got some slightly less clever ones, and I say they're razor sharp because it means I can do some really fine cutting. But there's so much going on in my body, like it's just even the skin. I can actually get some feedback through the scissors from the paper. We don't necessarily think about that, but that's what's going on, and that's what we learn to do with the plastic scissors, and then we get metal scissors. And if you don't have that response registering that, okay, I'm putting it, there's some more friction so I can let go, there's too much friction, it's more pressure. I mean, we don't think about this. It seems almost a silly conversation, but it's really, really not, because that's what's going on in our minds because I've learned to do it. If I don't have that tactile awareness or it's not functioning properly, it doesn't matter how many people tell me to use a pair of scissors, I'm never going to be able to do that.
Absolutely. And on the other side, we've got like we've had two students through the program that parents came in, and that they were like their children couldn't stand the feel of paper. So we have an overreactivity to a feeling of just, and the rest of us are thinking that's mad, society would just think, are you mad? What do you mean you don't like the feel of paper? You can't stand the feel of paper, so you can't write on it because you don't like the feel of paper. But this is real. It is real for these individuals, and both of them have come through really well, and they're fine. And now we're working on other skills, and that's it. Like a lot of the work that I do, it really is about peeling the onion. You come in with something like, I just can't get him to write because he doesn't like the feel of paper, to then think, right, okay, let's work on that. Now what's next? We realize we've got more coordination. Oh, actually, he's a bit anxious in this situation. We've got this. So you just peel back the onion. You deal with the most obvious, the most things that are getting in the way of life. And then you can start to refine and help life, the quality of life, improve day by day as you peel back the onion and work on each layer of skills and abilities and feelings and thoughts that come as you peel back.
But if you don't have the ability to come in, take a slightly broader view, take a step back and think, okay, they can't use a pair of scissors, why? Then you're just going to keep saying, come on, do it again, do it again. No, that's wrong. That's failure. Do it again. That's rubbish. Let's try again. But you need to have the ability to step back. And, most teachers, they've got 30, 35 kids in a classroom. They are really busy. They've just got to get them to try and do this task so they can move to the next level. And of course, they're not working with one child. They're working with 35, potentially. Okay, there might be some teaching assistants in there and whatever, but it's a big ask to expect a group of 30 people plus to be in the same place at the same time with the same abilities to be able to do the same thing. Much respect to teachers for even trying to do that sort of stuff. But you're going to get people who are not in that norm. And that norm in that room is everyone can hold a pair of scissors and cut a piece of paper with that scissors. Why can't you? Mm-hmm. And then the spotlight, I can feel the spotlight. I can feel that person thinking, I just can't.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the hardest thing is when that does feed into, then you wonder why we have so many mental health issues in the teen years and then in the early 20s when, people have tried really, really hard and they just get to the point where it's like, I'll give up, just can't. I can't pretend anymore. I can't do this. I can't change this. I am useless. I am all the rest of it, all the stuff that they start to turn in on themselves because we haven't met their needs. We haven't catered for them. We haven't understood. Not because we're bad people, we just don't have that knowledge, and yeah, that's I'm passionate and I'm just so glad for these calls. So just anybody who can hear YouTube, podcast, anything, if anybody is struggling, we don't want anybody to be struggling.
And putting you on the spot slightly, then mental health is what you've mentioned. We can't treat everybody as a complete unique individual in a group context because there is an element of we all need to be able to do the same sort of stuff. When you've got a factory and you've got 50 lathes, you need everyone to work in the same way. So there is that kind of, we need you to be able to work to the same standard, to the same level. You need to use the lathe correctly so you can turn the metal safely, and here's your goggles. And there's basics that have to be applied, and schools doing the same thing. It's like, we need you to work together to do this. But how much do you think sensory health is actually impacting on sensory health then? Because I look at the mental health crisis, it's getting younger and younger and younger. We've got, 10 and 12-year-olds wanting to kill themselves because of mental health issues. Not is it because of people have failed them in sensory health, because that's not a question we can answer. But how much do you think sensory health is actually feeding in then to emotional well-being later in life?
I think it's huge, utterly huge. I mean, I'm not sure whether 70% is too high a figure, but that's my experience. But that's also because of the people who've come through to me, most of them because the traditional mental health services haven't helped that much, if at all. So obviously those for the mental health services that have helped, well, then they don't need to be looking for any extra support. So I naturally see an awful lot of people who are just living. Mind you, I'm seeing it all the time now. So many more adults are connecting with me. So many more adults are just recognizing that there's something. More and more are getting diagnoses of various descriptions, whether it be autism or ADHD. And most of them are coming because of it being a mental health side of things, thinking that why can't I do this and why can't I do that, or I'm not coping with this, or I'm stressed about that. And it's just like, well, yes, from my perspective, because of the sights, the sounds, the smells, the movement experiences, the touch experiences, and the fact that we do not have a proper sensory diet in place for you, there isn't a recognition of changing how you function and changing how society functions, changing your work environment, changing your home environment, the things that you do, the way that you do them in order to help you stay in that calm, alert state, which is a core part of what we do when we create sensory diets, which is that's just a way of expressing how much sensory input and what type of sensory input goes into the day, to help someone feel as calm and as regulated as possible, to be in that this calm, alert state. It's a really important state to be in order to be able to feel good and not have mental health issues.
It's really good, I think, that you're able to get into really young children and try and help them earlier on. Okay, something's not quite right. We can spot something's wrong. What's wrong? They come to you, and it's great. I just find it really encouraging that there is somebody out there. I mean, you're on the Isle of Jersey, but they can help and say, well, okay, this isn't. We've ruled out the physical conditions. We've ruled out, physiological potential problems. What's left? Well, maybe you're not actually mentally ill. Maybe actually you've got a sensory processing issue. Excuse me. If you can deal with that, then that's fine. But it's encouraging also, you've got adults who are saying, something's not right. I don't know what's not right. I just know it's not right because when I'm in that group of people, I can't react the same way that they are. And I suppose as you start to get more self-awareness, which, you really self-awareness for me, it's sort of early 20s, I think, before we're really, really mature enough to really understand what's going on around us.
Mm.
I do think under 20s, there is a childlikeness to us. Yes, we're maturing and we're becoming adults, but for me, in my mid 40s, I look around and think, well, people in their early 20s, that's really when you start to have a proper understanding of where you fit in life. And everything before that is training. But it's
Mm.
also encouraging that they are then coming and saying, is this a sensory issue? And coming to you. And I don't know, it makes me very warm inside that you're doing something so good for people, not just children. And we've said this from the start, you're not just there for children. You deal with a massive range of physical, emotional, mental issues, ages. What's your advice? I suppose. I mean, we're thinking about Christmas, but people who this Christmas for the first time they're thinking, why can't I cope in a party? I've gone to the pub. Everyone's noisy. Why am I not coping? I've gone to a disco. That's where everybody's going. Old-fashioned word. We're going clubbing. Why can I not cope with that noise? All my friends are really happy, and I feel like my skin is crawling, and I need to leave. How do you encourage people who are thinking, what's wrong with me, to go one step further and think, maybe it's not actually something that's wrong with me. Maybe it's just something that actually can be healed and fixed.
Or it can be managed in a way that works well. There are certain things that we can certainly treat. There are other things I speak about more. The Santé ball, we bring in the extremes because I'm not sure there are certain things that we can change. The fixing, it depends how people see themselves there as to whether it actually needs to be fixed or whether it just needs to be helped and needs to be managed. This is all words we can kind of like throw around as to people feel, but there's a sense of recognizing, just honoring who they are, how they are, and recognizing that staying out for the Christmas party is for the 2 hours, it's never going to go well. If you've got those issues with, overwhelmed by sights and sounds and lots of busyness and people bumping into you unexpectedly, and that just to have that recognition that you can go and show your face, but just stay for half an hour, just stay for 10 minutes, do the sociable thing, put yourself out there, but limit it, really limit it. Some people would choose to stay for longer, but they'll put their ear defenders on, or they'll have extra layers on underneath, or they'll have different layers they can, strip off and wear certain things that they're more comfortable in. That they will find their own little ways of accommodations, but ultimately it is find out, become self-aware, find out the things and your level of tolerance for things that you can cope with and stick with it. Stick firm to what you know is best for you, because ultimately other people are going to be happier if you're happier. And even if you're only there for 10 minutes, just to be able to say hello and to be social for that little bit, but then just pull away. There is absolutely no shame in pulling away, doing the social thing, or even if you can't cope with that at all, sending that Christmas card or that email around to everybody, or going around to see them, once in the office, before they head on and say, it's not going to be the best, not the best for me, but all the best for Christmas, and do the personal touch, without needing to be overwhelmed and stressed and over aroused, over alerted because of the whole social pressures.
I think social pressures is an interesting little perspective here because, okay, we've got a Christmas party. Everybody in the office, we need to work together. We're a team. Let's go. We've got this free party. It's free food, free drink. Just come along. It's really important for the team. I mean, that's not even peer pressure. That's like management pressure. So little Andy B top tip, don't make people think they've got to come to parties. If it's not paid hours, they have no pressure to come, and don't put it on them. But I think what's interesting is you've just come up with really easy, like 12 or 15 potential solutions around a 2 hour Christmas party. And I would have thought of maybe 3 or 4 of those. But here's another one. You don't have to go. It's true, isn't it?
Yeah.
You don't have to force yourself to be that uncomfortable. It's not compulsory. It's okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But it's true, isn't it? How much pressure is there out there? Mental health, you've got to come. But I can't cope in those environments. Do you know what? If you want to stick your feet on the couch with a cup of hot cocoa and watch, I don't know, Pride and Prejudice, that's okay instead. That's my sort of a night, perhaps. But that's okay too. But it's based on that stigma, isn't it? But that's your occupational therapy part of who you are and what you do, because it's not just, okay, well, don't go. It's how can you go? What can we do to help you get there? And you've just come up with a whole bunch of stuff, which is why, if you're struggling, get hold of Annabelle Jackson.
Thank you.
But that's the point, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, it is. It is. It's how with who you are, how can we make life better, but how can we help you manage? How can we help you survive and thrive? Not just survive, but thrive in society, and find out where your boundaries are, find out what can be changed, find out what we can do slightly differently, just tweak things, to make you feel more. Yeah, just live life abundantly. We're to enjoy life. We only have one life on earth. Let's make the most of it.
I'm just checking my dates because I'm terrible at dates. Oh no, this is the last. This is our last session of this year. It's our 49th interview. Did you know that?
No, didn't. Wow.
49. Nearly 50. If we do a high-low game on our Sunday show. I'm just going to sort of throw this in. What's your high and low of 2024 for the work that you're doing? Your low
Oh,
point and the high point, which I'm just going to throw at you unprepared and everything.
yeah, totally unprepared and everything. I was saying, how honest can I be here?
As
Um,
large as you want to be.
yeah, okay. Let's go high points. Two massive points that I can't speak too much about one of them, but The fact that it was really lovely being unexpectedly forced to open a centre. That was just one of the best things that happened to be able to then just serve the island here. And say, look, I've got all this equipment. I can't be there. I can't use it all the time, but do you want to use it? So other families and other organisations coming on board and saying, we'd love that for our people. So that was such a positive. And the other one is that there has been a real openness to other schools, to homeschools, just across the island, a sense of this is really significant. We're starting to see the difference that this is making, and we'd like to explore this more with our staff and with our parents. So there are things coming into 2025 that I am just really excited to see what 2025 is going to hold from that perspective. And then just low points are just waiting for other people to make decisions. That it's hard waiting on others, especially when you have to be so dynamic and active when you are in control of your own business and you're in control of your own life and you want to go and help people, and other people are just a bit slower at seeing that and taking action. And I'm thinking, oh, if we could only do it now, we could just help, we could do this and that. And it's just like, no, patience is a virtue, is a gift.
It is. I credited my high and low relative to medical stuff and health, but my low point was definitely heart surgery in July. Not on my bucket list for the under 50. But my high point was actually I had you and Dr. Richard Scott GP, who both were feeding into stuff that I needed to get through that. Richard Scott was great because I was like, Richard, what are they going to do? Could you put it into simple language for me? Because he's my friend as well as he's on the show, same as you. And so he gave me some, I suppose, practical stuff that was going to happen, which was great. Some sort of medical tips to recover quicker. And then there was some of the sensory stuff that I was freaked out about, which you helped me through as well, just to understand it, which was important. And I think this is actually quite a lovely way. Well, I don't script these. I know people think, oh, what are the questions you're going to ask Andy B? I don't know. I never script these interviews. It doesn't matter whether it's Laure Jackson, Dr. Richard Scott GP. It doesn't matter who. I just have a conversation. But I think this is actually quite lovely because we need people in our life who can speak into our lives to help us. And as we come towards Christmas, which is next week, if you're listening to this or watching this, people matter. People are generally good. I know there's some hard stuff out there. Mental health is an issue. It's growing. But there are people like Dr. Richard Scott GP who can help you. There are people like Laure Jackson, occupational therapist, sensory specialist, who can help you in your lives to live better lives. And as we're going towards this Christmas, don't be afraid to reach out. If you're struggling, you're thinking, why am I not fitting into the crowd here? Do you know what? Not fitting in is a good thing. That's okay. It's actually quite good. Who knows what amazingly God-given gifts you've got for your life. But if you're stuck, reach out. Ask for help. People like Laure Jackson who can really help you. I'm looking forward to 2025, Anne, and getting from 49 to 100, which we should be able to do next year somehow.
Oh, that is great. 49, everything, all the sevens have just kind of followed my life just with everything. So for me, that's just a beautiful, when he said 49, he's like, no, it's but this isn't superstition. This is, I think this is God's order in the way that he does things. And certain things, as you say, there are confirmations that you get like throughout your life in certain ways. And there are certain ways that I receive things from the Lord. And this is, precious.
Our 49th chat on sensory health. I'm looking forward to number 100. Although I'm thinking it's 52 weeks in a year. We might struggle to get to 100 before the end of next year. We might have to get into 2026 to get to the 100th session. But we're going to keep going. If you want to know more about Laure Jackson and the work she does, if you're on the Isle of Jersey, then you can actually access her centre. That'd be brilliant. If you're thinking, I just don't want to go to the Christmas party, why can I not cope in a room of people that I like and get on with in the day, and yet we get to a pub and it's eating food and it's drinking and noise, why can I not cope? Perhaps you've got a sensory health struggle, and Laure Jackson may be able to, well, indeed, help you. And if you want to connect with Anne, understand her sensory, and we get this right, super sensory system, which is all about your thumbprint. What was it?
Flip around the other way. Sensory super system.
That was it. But it's a super sensory super system. You can connect with her. through our website, pure247radio.org, pure247radio.org/ALJ. And Lord Jackson, for the last 49, and here's to the next 51 at least. Thank you. We're loving this and educating people and encourage them. Do you know what? You can live a life where you're thriving, not just surviving. And Lord Jackson can help you with that.
Amen. Thank you.